General views of the author relative to subject and style time, and place perspective glimpse of the great city the approach Cockney, salutations the toll house western entrance, to Cockney Land Hyde Park Sunday, noon sketches of character, costume, and scenery the ride and drive Kensington Gardens bells and bow stars, and fallen star singularities of 1824 tales of ton-on dits, and anecdote Sunday evening high life and low life. The contrast Cockney Goth's notes, biographical, amorous, and exquisite. Its wealth and fashion, wit and folly, pleasures, whims, and melancholy, of all the charming belles and beaux who line the parks in double rows of princes, peers, their equipage, the splendor of the present age of West End fops and crusty cits, who drive their gigs or sport their tits, with all the groups we mean to dash on who form the busy world of fashion, proceeding onwards to the city with sketches, humorous and witty. The man of business and the change will come within our satire's range. Nor rank, nor order, nor condition, imperial, lowly, or patrician shall, when they see this volume, cry, the satirist has passed us by. But with good humor view our page depict the manners of the age. Our style shall, like our subject, be distinguished by variety, familiar, brief we could say too, it shall be whimsical and new, but reader that we leave to you. 'Twas morn, the genial sun of May o'er nature spread a cheerful ray, when Cockney land, clothed in her best, we saw, approaching from the west, and mid her steeples straight and tall espied the dome of famed St. Paul, surrounded with a cloud of smoke from many a kitchen chimney broke, a nuisance since consumed below by bill of Michael Angelo. 1. The coach o'er stones was heard to rattle. 1 A. Tailors act for compelling all large factories, which have steam and other apparatus, to consume their own smoke. 166 . The guard his bugle tuned for battle, the horses snorted with delight, as Piccadilly came in sight. On either side the road was lined with vehicles of every kind, and as the rapid wheel went round, there seemed scarce room to clear the ground. Gate push on how do well met pull up my tits are on the fret the number lost it tip then straight, that covey vance to bilk the gate. The toll house welcome this to town. Your prime, flash, bang up, fly, or down, a tidy team of Pradzearcasters quite a jollif tell my master. Thus Buck and Coachy greet each other, and seem familiar as a brother. No Chinese wall or rude barrier obstructs the view or entrance here, nor fee or passport save the warder, who draws to keep the roads in order, no questions asked, but all that please may pass and repass at their ease. In Cockney land, the 7th day is famous for a grand display of modes, of finery and dress of cit, Westender and noblesse, who in Hyde Park crowd like a fair to stare, and lounge and take the air or ride or drive or walk, and chat on fashions, scandal, and all that. Here, reader, with your leave, will we commence our London history. 'Twas Sunday, and the park was full with Mistress, John, and Master Bull, and all their little fry. The crowd pour in from all approaches, tilburys, dennets, gigs, and coaches. 167. The bells rung merrily. Old dowagers, their fubsy faces do, painted to eclipse the graces, pop their noddles out of some old family affair that's neither chariot, coach, or chair, well known at every route. But bless me, who's that coach and six? That, sir, is Mr. Billy Wicks, a great light o' the city, tallow chandler, and Lord Mayor 3. Miss Flambeau Wickses are the fair, who are dressed so very pretty. It's only for a year, you know, he keeps up such a flashy show, and then he's melted down. The man upon that half-starved nag for is an XSFF, a strange wag, half flash and half a clown. But see with artful lures, and wiles the Paphian goddess, Mrs. G***** S5. 2 There are from 20 to 30 of these well-known relics of antiquity who regularly frequent the park, and attend all the fashionable routes perfumed and painted with the utmost extravagance. If the wind sets in your face, they may be scented at least a dozen carriages off. 3 It is really ludicrous to observe the ridiculous pride of some of these ephemeral things. During their mayoralty, the gaudy city vehicle with 4 richly caparisoned horses is constantly in the drive, with 6 or 8 persons crammed into it like a family wagon, and bedizened out in all the colors of the rainbow ask for them 6 months after, and you shall find them more suitably employed, packing rags, oranges, or red herrings. For this man is such a strange compound of folly and eccentricity, that he is eternally in hot water with someone or other. 5 Mrs. Fanny G1S, the ci devant wife of a corn merchant, a celebrated courtesan who sports a splendid equipage, and has long figured upon town as a star of the first order in the Cyprian hemisphere. She has some excellent qualities, as poor MN can vouch. For when the fickle goddess Fortune left him in the lurch, she has a handsome annuity from a sporting peer, who was once the favored swain. 168 . From out her carriage peeps, she nods to amorous Mrs. D6, who bends with most sublime congy while ruin sleeps. Who follows one 'tis the hopeful son of the proud Earl of H.N., who stole the parson's wife. 7. The Earl of H.N. Flame, for cabriolets she's the dame 8, a dasher on my life. Jack T1 shows his pleasant face 9. A royal likeness here you'll trace, you'd swear he was a Guelph. See Lady Mary's you walk 10, and though but aide-de-camp to York, and Adonis with himself. 6 Mrs. D alias Mrs. BKY alias Miss Montague, the wife of poor Jem BKY, the greater his misfortune, a well-known Paphian queen, one of 5 sisters who are all equally notorious, and whose history is well known. She is now the favored sultana of a ci devant banker, whose name she assumes, to the disgrace of himself and family. 7 The clerical cornuto recovered, in a crim. Con. Action £4,000 for the loss of his frail rib, from this hopeful sprig of nobility. 8 Mrs. S, a most voluptuous lady, the discarded cheer Amy of the late Lord F1D, said to be the best carriage woman in the park. She lies in the Earl of H's cabriolet, most delightfully stretched out at full length, and in this elegant posture is driven through the park. 9 Captain TL of the Guards, whose powerful similitude to the reigning family of England is not more generally admitted than his good-humored qualities are universally admired. 10 The Hun. General U, aide-de-camp to the Duke of York, whose intrigue with Lady Mary was, we have heard, a planned affair to entrap a very different person. Be that as it may, it answered the purpose, and did not disturb the friendship of the parties. The Honorable General has obtained the appellation of the Park Adonis, from his attractive figure and known gallantries. AY Mark, a battered bow, 11, who'll still the fatal dice-box throw till not a guinea's left. Beyond's the brothers BA, 12 of gold and acres quite as free, by gaming 2 bereft. Here trips commercial dandy rock AS, 13. 11 Lord AY, the babe of honor once the gayest of the gay, where fashion holds her bright enchanting court, now wrinkled and depressed, and plucked of every feather by merciless Greek banditti. Such is the infatuation of play that he still continues to linger round the fatal table, and finds a pleasure in recounting his enormous losses. AY, who is certainly one of the most polished men in the world, was the leader of the Dandy Club, or the Unique Four, composed of Beau Brummel, Sir Henry Mildmay, and Henry Pierrepoint, the ambassador, as he is generally termed. When the celebrated Dandy Ball was given to His Majesty, then Prince of Wales, on that occasion the prince seemed disposed to cut Brummel, who, in revenge, coolly observed to AY, when he was gone, Big Ben was vulgar as usual. This was reported at Carlton House, and led to the disgrace of the exquisite. Shortly afterwards, he met the prince and AY in public, arm in arm, when the former, desirous of avoiding him, quitted the baron. Brummel, who observed his motive, said loud enough to be heard by the prince, "Who is that fat friend of yours?" This expression sealed his doom. He was never afterwards permitted the honor of meeting the parties at the palace. The story of George, Ring the Bell, and the reported conduct of the prince, who is said to have obeyed the request and ordered Mr. Brummel's carriage, is, we have strong reasons for thinking, altogether a fiction. Brummel knew the dignity of his host too well to have dared such an insult. The king since generously sent him 300 when he heard of his distress at Calais. Brummel was the son of a tavern keeper in St. James's and is still living at Calais. 12 The brothers are part of a flock of RR geese, who have afforded fine plucking for the Greeks. Parson Ambrose, the high priest of Pandemonium, had a leg of one and a wing of the other deviled for supper one night at the Gothic Hall. They have cut but a lame figure ever since. 13 A quaint cognomen given to the city banker by the West End beau, He is a very amiable man. 170 who never plays for heavy stakes, but looks to the main chance. There's Georgie WBLL, all the go, 14, the mold of fashion the court beau, since Brummel fled to France. His bright brass harness, and the well-known black cabriolet is always latest there. The reason George, with Captain P the lady-killing coterie, come late to catch the fair. CWSR, who with pious love, 15 for her, who sainted now above, a sister kindly takes, so, as the ancient proverb tells, the best of husbands, modern belles are your reformed rakes. In splendid misride down the ride alone see asterisk lady glide, 16, neglected for A. What's fame or titles, wealth's increase compared unto the bosom's peace? There bubbles nothing more. 14 George, although a roué of the most superlative order, is not deficient in good sense and agreeable qualifications. Since poor Beau Brummel's removal from the hemisphere of fashion, George has certainly shown a planet of the first magnitude. Among the fair he is also considered like his friend, Captain Pry, a perfect lady killer. Many, a little milliner's girl has had cause to regret the seductive notes of AZB. Limmer's Hotel. 15 The Marquis of WCTR has, since his first wife's death married her sister Reformation, we are happy to perceive, is the order of the day. The failure of Howard and Gibbs involved more than one noble family in embarrassments. 16 The amours of this child of fortune are notorious both on the continent and in this country. It is very often the misfortune of great men to be degraded by great profligacy of conduct. The poor lady is a suffering angel. 171 Observe yon graceful modest group 17, who look like chaste Diana's troop, the ladies Molyneux, with Sefton, the Nimrod of peers as old in honesty as years, a staunch true buff and blue. What portly-looking man is that in plain blue coat to whom each hat is moved in ride and walk? That pleasant fellow, be it known, is heir presumptive to the throne, tease Frederick of York. 18 A better, kinder-hearted soul you will not and, upon the whole, within the British Isle. But see where P.T.'s wife appears, 19, who changed, though rather late in years, for honest George Arla. Now by my faith it gives me pain. 17 The female branches of the Sefton family are superior to the slightest breath of calumny, and present an example to the peerage worthy of more general imitation. 18 No member of the present royal family displays more agreeable qualifications in society than the heir presumptive. Unaffected, affable, and free, the Duke may be seen daily pacing St. James's Street, Pall Mall, or the Park, very often wholly unattended. As his person is familiar to the public, he never experiences the slightest inconvenience from curiosity, and he is so generally beloved that none pass him who know him without paying their tribute of respect. In all the private relations of life, he is a most estimable man in his public situation, indefatigable, prompt, and attentive to the meanest application. 19 A more lamentable instance of the profligacy of the age cannot be found than in the history of the transaction which produced this exchange of wives and persons. A wag of the day published a new list of promotions headed as follows: Lady BN to be Lady ARPT by Exchange Lady PT, to be Duchess of AE by promotion Lady Charlotte WI, to be Lady PT, Vice Lady PT, promoted. 172 To see thee, cruel Lady J, 20, regret the golden ball. Tea's useless now, the fox and grapes remember, and avoid the apes which wait an old maid's fall. Gay Lady H's twinkling start 21. 20 It is not long since that, inspired by love or ambition, a wealthy commoner sought the promise of the fair hand of Lady J, nor was the consent of her noble father, influenced by certain weighty reasons. Wanting to complete the anticipated happiness of the suitor-all, the preliminary forms were arranged jointure, and pin money liberally fixed. Some legal objections as to a covenant of forfeiture overcame, a suitable establishment provided. The happy day was fixed, when Mark, inconstant fickle woman, the evening previous to completion, to the surprise of all the town, she changed her mind. She had reconsidered the subject. The man was wealthy and attractive in person. But then insupportable objection he was a mere plebeian, a common esquire, and his name was odious lady J.B. She could never endure it. The degrading thought produced a fainting fit, the recovery a positive refusal, the circumstance a week's amusement to the fashionable world. Reflection and disappointment succeeded, and a revival was more than once spoken of. But the recent marriage of the bachelor put an end to all conjecture, and the poor lady was for some time left to bewail in secret her single destiny. Who can say, when a lady has the golden ball at her foot, where she may kick it? Circumstances which have occurred since the above was written prove that the lady has anticipated our advice. 21. Her ladyship's crimson vis-a-vis and her tall footman are both highly attractive. There are no seats in the vehicle. The fair owner reclines on a splendid crimson velvet divan or cushion. She must now be considered a beauty of the last century, being already turned of 50. Still, she continued to flourish in the annals of fashion until within the last few years, when she ceased to go abroad for amusement, finding it more convenient to purchase it at home. As her parties in Grosvenor Square are of the most splendid description, and her dinners, where she is the presiding deity and the only one, are frequent and unrivaled for a display of the savoir-vivre, her ladyship can always draw on the gratitude of her guests for that homage to hospitality which she must cease to expect to her charms, now in the sere and yellow leaf. She is a MNN res verbum sal. Speaking of MNN ra, where is the portly John, the regent's double, as he was called some few years since, and the amiable Duchess, who bestowed her hand and fortune upon him, but an import? The Marquis is said to have shown some aversion in the first instance, till HSB1 sent his rent roll for his inspection. This was immediately returned with a very satisfactory reply, but accompanied with a more embarrassing request, namely, a sight of his pedigree. 173, glimmers in eclipse, afar's the light of former time. In gorgeous pride and vis-a-vis, 22, ABY's orange livery sea, the gayest in the clime. Camac and wife, in chariot green, constant as turtle doves are seen, with 2 bronze slaves behind next HTFD's comely widow dame. 23, with amorous G, a favorite name, when G was true and kind. 22, the gorgeous ABY in the sunflower's pride. This lady's vis-a-vis, by far the most splendidly rich on town. Her footmen, of which there are 4 on drawing-room days, are a proper emblem of that gaudy flower-bright yellow liveries, black lower garments, spangled and studded. There is a general keeping in this gorgeous equipage, which is highly creditable to the taste of the Marchioness, for the Marquis, good easy man, though a Bruce, he is too much engaged preserving his game at Rower End Park and keeping up the game in St. Stephen's, where his influence is represented by no less than 8 sound men and true, to attend to these trifling circumstances. This, with a well-paid rental of upwards of £100,000 per annum, makes the life of this happy pair pass in an uninterrupted stream of fashionable felicity. 23, the Marchioness is said to bear the neglect of a certain capricious friend with much cool philosophy. Soon after the intimacy had ceased, they met by accident. On the sofa, by the side of the inconstant, sat the reigning favorite. The Marchioness placed herself uninvited on the opposite side. Astonishment seized he rose, made a very graceful bow to one of the ladies, and coolly observed to the Marchesa, if this conduct is repeated, I must decline meeting you in public. This was the cut royal. 174 . CSBY's Pyrrhus, whom each fool of fashion meets in Sunday school, 24 to chat in learned lore where rhyming peers and lettered beaux blue stocking bells to love dispose, and wit is deemed a bore. With brave Sir Ronald, toe-to-toe, see Mrs. MHL Agilo, 25, superb equestriana. Next that voluptuous little dame, 26, who sets the dandy world in flame, the female Giovanni. Erin's sprightly beauteous belle, gay lady GTM, and her swell the Yorkshire whiskerandos, 27. 24, the dullness of the Marchioness's Sunday evening converse as Ziones, have obtained them the fashionable appellation of the Sunday school. Lord Byron thought it highly dangerous for any wit to accept a second invitation, lest he should be inoculated with ennui. 23, Mrs. M.A.G., a very amiable and accomplished woman sister to Sir H.Y. Vini TPT. She is considered the best female equestrian in the ride. 26. A consideration for the delicacy of our fair readers will not allow us to enter upon the numerous amours of this favorite of Apollo and the Muses, and not less celebrated intriguant. She may, however, have ample justice entailed upon her under another head. Latterly, since the police have been so active in suppressing the gaming houses, a small party have met with security and profit for a little chicken hazard in Curzon Street, at which Mr. CT has occasionally acted as croupier and banker. Elliston used to say, when informed of the sudden indisposition or absence of a certain little actress and singer, I understand. She has a more profitable engagement than mine this evening. The amorous trio, CLGT, Charles HRS, and the exquisite Master G may not have cause to complain of neglect. The first of these gentlemen has lately, we understand, been very successful at play. We trust experience will teach him prudence. 27. His lordship commands the York Hussars, in defense of whose whiskers he sometime since made a quixotic attack upon a public writer. As he is full 6 feet high, and we are not quite 5, prudence bids us place our finger on our lip. 175. Pale Lambton, he who loves and hates by turns, what pits or pit creates, led by the Whig fandangos. Sound folly's trumpet, fashion's drums, here great AYWC comes. 28. Mong tailors a red button. With luminarious nose and cheeks, which love of much good living speaks, observe the city glutton, Sir W.M., admiral of yachts of turtles, capons, port, and pots, in curricle so big. Jack Fr follows, Jack's a wag. 29. 28. A YWO-esque. Otherwise the renowned Billy Button, the son and heir to the honors, fortune, and shopboard of the late Billy Button of Bedford Street, Covent Garden. The latter property he appears to have transferred to the front of the old brown landau, where the aged coachman, with nose as flat as the ace of clubs, sits transfixed and rigid as the curls of his caxon, from 3 till 6 every Sunday evening, urging on a cabbage-fed pair of ancient prods, which no exertion of the venerable Jehu has been able for the last 7 years to provoke into a trot from Hyde Park Gate to that of Cumberland and back again. The contents of the vehicle are equally an exhibition. Billy, with 2 watches hung by 1 chain, undergoing the revolutionary movements of buckets in a well, and his eyeglass set round with false pearls, are admirably and sweet with his bugle optics. The frowsy madam in faded finery, with all the little buttons, attended by a red-haired poor relation from Inverness, who is at once their governess and their victim, form the happy tenantry of this moving closet. No less than 3 crests surmount the arms of this descendant of Wallace the Great. A waggish Hibernian, some few months since, added a 4th, by chalking a goose proper, crested with a cabbage, which was observed and laughed at by everyone in the park except the purblind possessor of the vehicle, who was too busy in looking at himself. 29. Honest Jack is no longer an MP, to the great regret of the admirers of senatorial humors. Some few years since, being B2 high plenus, he reeled into St. Stephen's Chapel a little out of a perpendicular. When the then dignified abbot having called him to order, he boldly and vociferously asserted that Jack Fr of Rosehill was not to be set down by any little fellow in a wig. This offense against the person and high office of the abbot of St. Stephen's brought honest Jack upon his knees, to get relieved from a troublesome surging attendant of the chapel. Knowing his own infirmities, and fearing perhaps that he might be compelled to make another compulsory prayer, Jack resigned his pretensions to senatorial honors at the last general election. His chief amusement, when in town, is the watching and tormenting the little marchands des modes who cross over or pass in the neighborhood of Regent Street. He is, however, perfectly harmless. 30. An unlucky accident, occasioned by little THD, the wine merchant overturning FZY in his tandem, compelled the latter to sell out of the army, but not without having lost a leg in the service. A determined patriot, he was still resolved to serve his country. A barrister on one leg might be thought ominous of his client's cause, or afford food for the raillery of his opponent. The bar was therefore rejected. But the church opened her arms to receive the dismembered son of Mars, a parson with a cork leg, or 2 wooden ones, or indeed without a leg to stand on, was not unorthodox, and FCY was soon inducted to a valuable benefice. He is now, we believe, a pluralist, and, if report be true, has shown something of the old soldier in his method of retaining them. FY married Miss YDM, the daughter of Mrs. HS, who was the admired of his brother, LDP. He is generally termed the fighting parson, and considered one of the best judges of a horse in town. He sometimes does a little business in that way among the young ones. 176 . A jolly dog who sports his nag or queers the speaker's wig to Venus. Jack is staunch and true, to Bacchus pays devotion too, but likes not bully Mars. Next him some guardsmen, exquisite a well-dressed troop, but as to fight, it may leave ugly scars. Here a church militant is seen, 30, who'd rather fight than preach. I ween once major, now a parson, with one leg in the grave, he'll laugh, chant up a pard, or quaintly chaff to keep life's pleasant farce on. 177. Lord Arthur Hill his Arab sports, and gentle usher to the courts see Horace and Kang CK, 31, who, with the modern Mahkemna CME, must ever bear the sway for ugliness of look. A pair of ancients you may spy, 32, Sir Edward and Sir Carnaby from Brighton just set free, the jesters of our Lord the King, who loves a joke and aids the thing in many a sportive way. A motley group come rattling on, 33. 31 Horace SYR, gentleman usher to the king, and KGCK, said to be the ugliest man in the British Army. In the park, he is rivaled only by CC. For the benefit of all the married ladies, we would recommend both of these singularities to wear the veil in public. 32 Sir Ed DNGA. His present majesty is not less fond of a pleasant joke than his laughter-loving predecessor, Charles Roman II. The Puke of Clarence, while at the pavilion, a short time since, admired a favorite grey pony of Sir E.D. Ennies, in praise of whose qualities the baronet was justly liberal. After the party had returned to the palace, the Duke, in concert with the KG, slyly gave directions to have the pony painted and disfigured by spotting him with watercolor and attaching a long tail, and then brought on the lawn. In this state, he was shown to Sir E, as one every way superior to his own. After examining him minutely, the old baronet found great fault with the pony, and being, at the Duke's request, induced to mount him, objected to all his paces, observing that he was not half equal to his grey. The king was amazingly amused with the sagacity of the good-humoured baronet, and laughed heartily at the astonishment he expressed when convinced of the deception practiced upon him. Sir CNY A. Chesney, although a constant visitor at the pavilion, is not particularly celebrated for any attractive qualification, unless it be his unlimited love of little ladies. He is known to all the horse dealers round London, from his constant inquiries for a nice quiet little horse to carry a lady, but we never heard of his making a purchase. 33. The middle order of society was formerly in England the most virtuous of the three. Folly and vice reared their standard, and recruited their ranks in the highest and the lowest. But the medium being now lost, all is in the extreme. The superlative dandy inhabitant of a first floor from the ground in Bond Street, and the finished inhabitant of a first floor from heaven, who lives by diving in Fleet Street, are in kindness and habits precisely the same. 178 . Who ape the style and dress of ton, and scarce are worth review, yet forced to note the silly elves, who take such pains to note themselves, will take a name or two. Chesley, a thing of shreds and patches, 34, whose manners with his calling matches, that is, he's a mere goose. Old St. of France, a worthy peer from shopboard raised him to a sphere of ornament and use. The double dandy, fashion's fool, the Lubin log of Liverpool, fat Mr. APLL, upon his cob, just 12 hands high, a mountain on a mouse you'll spy trotting towards the mall. Sir the chicken man, 35. 34 young Primant, as he is generally termed, the once dashing foreman and cutter out, now co-partner of the renowned Baron St. recently made a peer of France. Who would not be a tailor, since he has retired with a fortune of £100,000. Lord de CFFD, some time since objecting to certain items in his son's bill from St. C as being too highly charged, said, "Tell Mr. S I will not pay him, if it costs me £1,000 to resist it." St. C, on hearing this, said, "Tell his lordship that he shall pay the charge, if it costs me 10,000 to make him." Chesley, with some little satisfaction, was displaying to a customer the prints of CBG's bill for 3 months, on the occasion of His Highness's new field marshal's suit, we suppose. "Here," said he, "see what we have done for him. His quarter's tailor's bill now comes to more than his annual income formerly amounted to." Mr. Chesley sports a bit of blood, a dennet, and a filly, and for a tailor is a superfine sort of dandy, but with a strong scent of the shop about him. 35. The redoubtable general's penchant for little girls has obtained him the tender appellation of the Chicken Man. Many of these petty amours are carried on in the assumed name of Sir Louis N.T.N., aided by the skill and ingenuity of Captain Asterisk. Youth may plead whim and novelty for low intrigue, but the aged beau can only resort to it from vitiated habit. 179. With pimp asteriskity in the van, the spy of an old spy, who beat up for recruits in town, mong little girls in checkered gown of ages rather shy. That mild, complacent-looking face, 36, who sits his bit of blood with grace, is tragic Charlie Young, with dowager savant a beau, who'll spout, or tales relate, nobility among. Sure such a pair was never seen, by nature formed so sharp and keen as HDSN and Jack L.G., or two who have played their cards so well, as many a plucked roué can tell, whose purses once were strong, both deal in pipes and, by the nose, have led to many a greenhorn's woes, a few gay bucks to Surrey, where Marshal Jones commands in Chief A Squadron, who to find relief are always in a hurry. They're followed by a merry set CLM Riss, LNX, young BDT, whom they may shortly follow. That tall dismembered dandy Mark, who strolls dejected through the park with cheeks so lank and hollow, that's Badger BTE, poet A, the mighty author of Today. 36. This truly respectable actor is highly estimated among a large circle of polished society, where his amusing talents and gentlemanly demeanor render him a most entertaining and agreeable companion. 180. Forgotten of tomorrow, a superficial wit, who will write for shandy little books of spite when cash he wants to borrow. The pious soul who's driving by, and at the poet looks so shy, is Parson A the gambler, 37. His deaf-lugged daddy a known blade in pandemonium's fruitful trade, Mong Paphian's a rambler. Augusta H. Key, or CI, moves along the path her little doves decoys, upon each arm. Where's Jehu Martin, four in hand, an exile in a foreign land from fear of legal charm. A pensioner of Cyprian Queen, the Bond Street tailor here is seen, the tally-ho so gay. Next PS, 38, who by little goes. 37. The parson is so well known, and has been so plentifully bespattered on all sides, that we shall, with true orthodox charity, leave him with a strong recommendation to the notice of the Society for the Suppression of Vice, with this trite remark, Vidi hic et ubique. 38. This man, who is now reported to be worth £300,000, was originally a peacebroker in Bedford-Bury, and afterwards kept a low public house in Vinegar Yard, Drury Lane, from whence he merged into an illegal lottery speculation in Northumberland Street, Strand, where he realized a considerable sum by insurances and little goes. From this spot he was transplanted to Norris Street, in the Haymarket, managing partner in a gaming house, when, after a run of ill luck, an affair occurred that would have occasioned some legal difficulty, but for the oath of a pastry cook's wife, who proved an alibi, in return for which act of kindness he afterwards made her his wife. Obtaining possession of the rooms in Pall Mall, then the celebrated E.O. tables and the property of W. the husband, by a sham warrant, the latter became extremely jealous, and, to make all comfortable our hero, to use his own phrase, generously bought the muir and call Mrs. W. and her son both since dead. The latter rose to very high rank in an honorable profession. The old campaigner has now turned pious, and recently erected and endowed a chapel. He used to boast he had more promissory notes of gambling dupes than would be sufficient to cover the whole of Pall Mall. He may with justice add that he can command banknotes enough to cover Cavendish Square. Tilde 180, 1 tilde tilde. And West End hells, to fortune rose by many a subtle way. Patron of bull baits, racings, fights, a chief of black-legged low delights, 'tis the new MS.F.K. Time was, his heavy vulgar gait, with one of highest regal state took precedence of rank. But now, a little in disgrace since J.E. usurped his M's place, a stranger he's at court. Unlike the greatest and the best who went before, his feathered nest is well enriched by sport. F1Y disastrous, honors child LT he the giddy, gay, and wild and sportive little Jack. The prince of dandies join the throng, where Gwydir spanks his fours along the silvery grays or black. The charming FD and Colonel B, 39, snugly in close carriage C with crimson coats behind, and Mrs. C the Christmas bell. 39, we shall not follow the Colonel's example, or we could give some extracts from the letters of A. Female correspondent of his that would be both curious and interesting. But N import, consideration for the lady alone, prevents the publication. In town, he is always discovered by a group of would-be exquisites, the satellites of the Jupiter of BKYCTE at GLR. Or at CHM they have some name. But here they are more fortunate, for o'er them oblivion throws the friendly veil. Tilde 182 tilde tilde. With banker's clerk, a tale must tell to all who are not blind. Poodle buying appears in view, 40, who gives at whist a point or two to dowagers in years. And see where every body notes the star of fashion, Romeo coats 41, the amateur appears, but where? Where say, shall I tell her the brass cocks in cockle shell? Ill hazard, rouge et noir if it but speak, can tales relate of many an equipage's fate, and may of many more. Ye rude canale make way, the Countess and the Count 42. 40 this gentleman is generally designated by the name of the whist man. He holds a situation in the Secretary of State's office, and is in particular favor with all the old dowagers, at whose card parties it is said he is generally fortunate. He has recently been honored with the situation of Grand Chamberlain to their Black Majesties of the Sandwich Isles. 41 poor Borneo's brilliancy is somewhat in eclipse, and though not quite a fallen star, he must not run on black too long, lest his diamond-hilted sword should be the price of his folly. 42 the Countess of is the daughter of Governor J. Her mother's name was Patty F.D., the daughter of an auctioneer who was the predecessor of the present Mr. Christie's father. Patty, then a very beautiful woman, went with him to India, and was a most faithful and attentive companion on the voyage home with J and her 3 children, by him, the present Countess, and her brothers James and George. They touched at the Cape, where the old governor most ungratefully fell in love with a young Portuguese lady, whom he married and brought to England in the same ship with his former associate, whom he soon after completely abandoned, settling 500L a year upon her for the support of herself and daughter. His 2 sons, James and George, he provided with writerships in the company's service, and sent to India. James died young, and George returned to England in a few years, worth £180,000. He lingered in a very infirm state of health, the effects of the climate and Mrs. M. alias Madame Hautgout, and at his death, being a bachelor, he left the present Countess, his sister who lived with him, the whole of his property. There are various tales circulated in the fashionable world relative to the origin and family of the Count, who has certainly been a most fortunate man. He is chiefly indebted for success with the Countess to his skill as an amateur on the flute, rather than to his paternal estates. The patron of foreigners, he takes an active part in the affairs of the Opera House Bortori, having given some offense in this quarter, was by his influence kept out of an engagement. But it would appear he received some amends by the following extract from a fashionable paper of the day. A certain fashionable L, who was thought to be au comble de Ben Hur, has lately been much tormented with that green-eyed monster, jealousy, in the shape of an opera singer. Plutot Merrier qua changer was thought to be the motto of the pretty round-faced Englishess, but alas! Like the original, it was written on the sands of disappointment, and was scarcely read by the admiring husband, before his joy was dashed by the prophetic wave, and the inscription erased by a favored son of Apollo. L'aurait est le chemin du cœur, So thought the L, and forbade the S to hold converse with Monsieur T. But les femmes puvant tout, parsquels gouvernant seu qui gouvernant tous. A meeting took place in Grosvenor Square, and amid the interchange of do you, the L arrived. A desperate scuffle ensued. The intruder was banished the house, and, as he left the door, is said to have whistled the old French proverb of le bon temps viendra. This affair has created no little amusement among the beau monde. All the dowagers are fully agreed on one point, that l'amour est une passion qui vient souvent sans, quan s'en aperçoit, et qui s'en va aussi de même. Tilde 183 tilde. Who play de pretty flute, who charm une petty English ninny, till all the joueurs skinny him paché en culotte. Who follows? 'Tis the Signor Torre, bout whom the gossips tell a story, with some who have gone before. The bird in yonder cage confined can sing of lovers young and kind, but there he'll sing no more. Tilde 184 tilde. Lord L looks disconsolate. 43 No news from Spain I think of late, per favor am I. Ne'er heed, my lord, you still may find some opera damsel true and kind, who'll prove less coy and naughty. Now by the pricking of my thumbs, there's something wicked this way comes. Tease ace false dame, 44, who at Almack's or in the park, with whispers charms a clucal spark, to blight his wreath of fame. Observe where princely Devonshire, 45. 43, his lordship, though not quite so deeply smitten as the now happy swain, had, we believe, a little penchant for the charming little daughter of Terpsichore. What news from Spain, my lord, this morning? Said Sir C. To Lord L, I have no connection with the Foreign Office, replied his lordship. I beg pardon, my lord, but I am sure I met a Spanish messenger quitting your house as I entered it. On the turf, his lordship's 4-year-old, versus 5 speculations with Cove Bien have given him a notoriety that will, we think, prevent his ruining himself at Newmarket. Like the immortal Effie, he is one of the opera directors, and has a great inclination for foreign curiosities. Vidi the following extract. The new corps de ballet at the opera this season, 1823, is entirely composed of Parisian elegance, selected with great taste by Lord L, whose judgment in these matters is perfectly con amore. In a letter to a noble friend on this subject, Lord L says that he has seen, felt, and proved them all to be excellent artistes with very finished movements. Certain ridiculous reports have long been current in the fashionable world, relative to a mysterious family affair, which would preclude the noble dukes entering into the state of matrimony. It is hardly necessary to say they have no foundation in truth. The duke was certainly born in the same house, and at nearly the same time in Florence when Lady E. F. Centaur, since Duchess of D., was delivered of a child but that offspring is living, and, much to the present duke's honor, affectionately regarded by him. The duke was for some years abroad after coming to his title, owing, it is said, to an unpleasant affair arising out of a whist party at a great house, which was composed of a prince, Lords L and YTH, another foreign prince, and a Colonel B, of whom no one has heard much since a noble mansion in Piccadilly was there, and then assigned to the colonel, who at the request of the E, who had long wished to possess it as a temporary residence, during some intended repairs at the great house, reconveyed it to the. On the receipt of a note from Y the next morning, claiming the amount of the duke's losses, he started with surprise at the immense sums, and being now perfectly recovered from the overpowering effects of the bottle, hastened with all speed to take the opinions of 2 well-known sporting peers, whose honor has never been questioned, Lords Fy and Sn. They, upon a review of the circumstances, advised that the money should not be paid, but that all matters in dispute should be referred to a 3rd peer, Earl Gy, who was not a sporting man. To this effect, a note was written to the applicant, but not before some communication had taken place with a very high personage. The consequence was that no demand was ever afterwards made to the referee. Lord G.C. afterwards repurchased the great house with the consent of the Duke from the fortunate holder, as he did not like it to be dismembered from the family. We believe this circumstance had a most salutary effect in preventing any return of a propensity for play. 44 Charlie loves good place and wine, and Charlie loves good brandy, and Charlie's wife is thought divine, by many a jack a dandy. Parody on an old nursery rhyme. 45. A character of deviant satire. Tilde 185 tilde tilde. Tilde 186 tilde tilde. In action, heart and mind appear, avoids the public gaze. Graceful yet simple in attire, you'd take him for a plain esquire. His acts best speak his praise. That queer, plain yellow chariot, mark, which drives so rapid through the park. The servants clothed in grey, that's George, incog George who. George King 46, of whom near treason teased to sing, in this our sportive lay. Kings like their subjects should have air and exercise, without the stare which the state show attends. I love to see in public place the monarch, who'll his people face, and meet like private friends. So may the crown of this our isle ever welcomed with a smile, and George, that smile be thine. Then when the time end come it must, that crowns and scepters shall be dust, thou shalt thy race outshine, shalt live in good men's hearts, and tears from age to age, while memory rears the proud historic shrine. 46. From the Diary of a Politician. Through Manchester Square took a canter just now, met the old yellow chariot, and made a low bow. This did of course, thinking 'twas loyal and civil, but got such a look-o. 'Twas black as the devil. How unlucky, incog, he was travelling about, and I like a noodle must go find him out. Mem. When next by the old yellow chariot I ride, to remember there is nothing princely inside. Tom Moore. Tilde 187 tilde tilde. What rueful-looking knight is that, 47, with sunken eye and silken hat? 47 Lord PRM, the delicate dandy. Laced up in stays to show his waist, and highly rouged to show his taste, his whiskers meeting, neath his chin with gooseberry eye and ghastly grin with mincing steps, conceited phrase, such as insipid pea displays. These are the requisites to shine a dandy, exquisite, divine. Ancient dandy's a confession. The doctor, asterisk, as we learn, once said, to Mistress Thrale, howe'er a man be stoutly made, and free from ail, in flesh and bone, and colour thrive, he's going down at 35. Yet Horace could his vigour muster, and would not till a later lustre one single inch of ground surrender to any swain in Cupid's calendar. But one I think a jot too low, and t'other is too high, I know. Yet what I've found, I'll freely state the thing may do till. But that's a job for then, in truth, one's but a clumsy sort of youth, and maugre looks, some evil tongue will say the dandy is not young, for mid the yellow and the sere, asterisk, though here and there a leaf be green, no more the summer of the year it is, than when one swallows seen. Johnson. T fuge suspicere cujus octavum, trepidavit odes claudier lustramod. 4.1. Roman 2. Now tottering on to 40 years, my age forbids all jealous fears. My May of life is fallen into the sere and yellow leaf. Macbeth. Tilde 188 tilde tilde. Pinched in behind and fore. Whose visage, like La Mancha's chief, seems the pale frontispiece to grief, as if 'twould ne'er laugh more, whose dress and person both defy the poet's pen, the painter's eye, tease out retout nature. His Arab charger swings his tail, curvets and prances to the gale like death's pale horse, and neighing proudly seems to say, here fashion's vot'ries must pay homage, of course 'tis PHM, whom Mrs. HGS at opera and playhouse dodges since he gained Josephine, tailors adorn 1,000 ways, and though time won't men may make sleighs, the dentist, barber make repairs, new teeth supply, and color hairs. But art can ne'er return the spring and spite of all that she can do, a beau's a very wretched thing at 42. The late Princess Charlotte issued an order, interdicting any one of her household appearing before her with frightful fringes to their leaden heads. In consequence of this cruel command, PRM, being one of the lords of the bedchamber, was compelled to curtail his immense whiskers. A very feeling ode appeared upon the occasion, entitled My Whiskers, dedicated to the princess. It was never printed, but attributed to Thomas More. The kiss, or Lady Frances WWS Frolic, had nearly produced a fatal catastrophe. How would poor Lady Anne WM have borne such a misfortune? Or what purling stream would have received the divine form of the charming Mrs. HDS? But alas, he escaped little W.S. Ball, only to prove man's base ingratitude. for he has since cut with both these beauties for the interesting little Josephine, the protégée of TYBT, and the sister of the female Giovanni. 189 . Ye madly vicious can it be? A mother sunk in infamy, to sell her child is seen. Let Bow Street Annals and Tom BT 48, who paid the milliner, tell the rest. It suits not with our page. Just satire while she censures feels, verse spreads the vice when it reveals the foulness of the age. Tea's 5:30, and fashion's train no longer in Hyde Park remain. Bon ton cries hence, away the low-bred, vulgar Sunday throng, who dine at 2, are ranged along on both sides of the way with various views. These honest folk descant on fashions, quiz and joke, or mark a shy cock down 49. For many a star in fashion's sphere can only once a week appear in public haunts of town, lest those two ever watchful friends, the step-brothers, whom sheriff sends, John Doe and Richard Roe, a taking pair should deign to borrow to wit, until All Souls, the morrow, the body of a beau. 48. Poor Tom BT has paid dear for his protection of the Josephine. £1,500 for millinery in 12 months is a very moderate expenditure for so young a lady of fashion. It is, to be sure, rather provoking that such an ape as Lord should take command of the frigate and sail away in defiance of the chartered party, the moment she was well found and rigged for a cruise. See Common Plea Reports, 1823. 49. The Sunday men, as they are facetiously called in the fashionable world, are not now so numerous as formerly. The facility of a trip across the channel enables many a shy cock to evade the scrutinizing eye and affectionate attachment of the law. But Sunday sets the prisoner free, he shows in park, and laughs with glee at creditors and bum. Then who of any taste can bear the coarse, low jest and vulgar stare of all the city scum, of fat Sir Gobble, Mistress Fig, in buggy, sulky, coach, or gig, with Dobbin in the shay? At every step some odious face, of true mechanic cut, will place themselves plump in your way. Now onward to the Serpentine, a river straight as any line near Kensington, let's walk, or through her palace gardens stray, where elegance of the day ogle, congee, and talk. Here imperial fashion reigns, here high-bred belles meet courtly swains by assignation. Made at Almack's, Argyle, or Rout, while Lady Mother walks about in perturbation, watching her false peer, or to make a Benedict of some high rake, to miss a titled prize. Here, chameleon-colored, see beauty in bright variety, such as a god might prize. Here, too, like the bird of Juno, fancies a gaudy group, that you know, of gay marchands des modes. Haberdashers, milliners, fops from city desks or Bond Street shops and belles from Oxford Road, crowds here, commingled, pass and gaze, and please themselves 1,000 ways. 191. Some read the naughty rhymes which are on every alcove writ, immodest, lewd attempt at wit, disgraceful to the times. Here Scotland's dandy Irish Earl, 50, with noblet on his arm would whirl and frolic in this sphere, with mulberry coat and pink Cossacks. The red-haired Thane the fair attacks, FS ever on the leer, and when alone, to every belle the amorous beau love's tale will tell, intent upon their ruin. Beware Macduff, the fallen stars. Venus aggrieved will fly to Mars, there's mischief brewing. What mountain of a fair is that, whose jewels, lace, and Spanish hat proclaim her high degree, with a tall, meager-looking man, who bears her reticule and fan? That was Maria D., now the first favorite at court. 50. His lordship is equally celebrated in the wars of Mars and Venus, as a general in the service of Spain. When Lord MDFF in the desperate bombardment of Matagorda, an old fort in the Bay of Cadiz, the falling of a fragment of the rock, struck by a shell, broke his great toe. In this wounded state he was carried about the Alameda in a cherubim chair by 2 bare-legged gallegos, to receive the condolations of the grandees, and we regret to add, the unfeeling jeers of the British, who made no scruple to assert that his lordship had, as usual, put his foot in it. The noble general would no doubt have added another leaf to Bis Laurel under the auspices of the ex-smuggler, late Illustrissimo General Ballesteros, had not he suddenly become a willing captive to the soul-subduing charms of the beauteous Antonia of Tarifa, of whose history and melancholy death we may speak hereafter. On a late occasion, he has been honored with the Star of the Guelphic Order, when, for the first time in his life, he went on his knees, as some amends for his sudden dismissal from the bedchamber. Noblet, who has long since been placed upon the pension list, has recently retired, and is succeeded by a charming little Parisian actress who lives in the New Road, and plays with the French company now at Tottenham Street Theatre. Lord L has also a little interest in the same concern. His lordship's affairs occur with Antonia, Noblet, and M, though perfectly platonic, have proved more expensive than the most determined votary to female attractions ever endured. For the gratification of this innocent passion, Mars, asterisk, mighty pines have bit the dust, and friendly purses bled. 192, . And if we may believe report, she holds the golden key of the backstairs and can command a potent influence in the land. But KN best can tell, 'tis most clear, no ill betide us, near the Georgium Sidus this planet likes to dwell. Lovely as light, when morning breaks 51, above the hills in golden streaks, observe yon blushing rose, Uxbridge, the theme of every tongue, the sylph that charms the agged and young, where grace and virtue glows. Gay Lady H her lounge may take, 52, reclining near the Indian lake, and think she's quite secure. 51, the beautiful little countess, the charming goddess of the golden locks, was a Miss Campbell, a near relation of the Duke of Argyll. She is a most amiable and interesting elegante. 52, although Lord Ellie is the constant attendant of Lady H, report says the attachment is merely platonic. His lordship was once smitten with her sister, and having thorough suffered the most cruel disappointment, consoles himself for his loss in the sympathizing society of Lady H. Mar Forest, belonging to his lordship, producing the finest mast pines in the empire. The noble earl has lately cut many scores of them me some old friends, rather than balk his fancy. 193, . As well might see one FD hope to pass upon the town, his CR lass for genuine and pure. See Warwick's charming countess glide, 53 with constant Harry by her side along the gay parterre, and look where the loud laugh proclaims the cits and their Camelian dames, the gaudy Cheapside fair, dressed in all colors the shop, fashioned for the Easter hop to grace the civic feast, where the great Lord Mayor presides o'er tallow, ribbons, rags, and hides, the Sultan the East. The would-be poet, CHSLH, 54, comes sauntering with his graces 3, the little gay coquettes. After view the Cyprian corps of well-known traders, many score from Bang to Angel MTZ, a heedless, giddy, laughing crew, who'd seem as if they never knew of want or fell despair. Yet if unveiled the heart might be, you'd find the demon, misery, had ta'en possession there. Think not that satire will excuse ye frail though fair, or that the muse will silent pass ye by, to you a chapter shall devote, where all of fashionable note. 53 Lady Sarah Saville, afterwards Lady Monson, now Countess of Warwick, a most beautiful, amiable, and accomplished woman. By Constant Harry is meant her present Earl. 54 C Amatory Poems by CHOSLH. We could indulge our readers with a curious account of the demolition of the Paphian car at Covent Garden Theatre, but the story is somewhat musty. 194 . Shall find their history. Vice to be hated, needs but be seen. And thus shall every Paphian queen be held to public view, and though protected by a throne, the gallant and his miss be shown in colors just and true. The Countess of 10,000 C, 55, the dear delightful Savante be, who once was sold and bought. The magic lantern well displays the scenes of long-forgotten days and gives new birth to thought. Nay, start not, here will not relate the breakneck story gossips prate within the Emerald Isle. No spirit gray, or black, or brown we'll conjure up, with hideous frown to chase the dimpled smile. In fleeting numbers as we pass, we find these shadows in our glass, we move, and they're no more. But see where chief of follies train. 55, the beautiful and accomplished countess is a lovely daughter of Hibernia. Her maiden name was PR, and her father an Irish magistrate of high respectability. Her first matrimonial alliance with Captain Fr proved unfortunate. An early separation was the consequence, which was effected through the intervention of a kind friend, Captain J.S. of the 11th. Shortly afterwards, her fine person and superior endowments of mind, made an impression upon the Earl that nothing but the entire possession of the lady could allay. The affair of Lord A and Mrs. B is too well known to need repetition. It could not succeed a second time. Abelard F having paid the debt of nature, there was no impediment but a visit to the temple of Hymen, on which point the lady was determined, and the yielding suitor, wounded to the vital part, most readily complied. It is due to the Countess to admit that since her present elevation, her conduct has been exemplary and highly praiseworthy. 195 . Conceited, simple, rash, and vain comes liberal Master G.A., 56, a dandy, half-fledged exquisite, who paid £9,000 a night to female Giovanni. Reader, I think I hear you say, what pleasure had he for his pay? Upon my word, not any, for soon as VTS got the cash she set off with a splendid dash from opera to Paris, left CLT and this simple fool, 67, who no doubt's been an easy tool, to spend it with Charles H.S. C. Carolina comes in view, a lamb, from Mary Melbourne's ewe, who scaped the fatal knife. HLLD's blue stocking rib appears, who makes amends in latter years for early cause of strife. Catalyst George, the red-haired bard, whose rhymes pedantic, crude, and hard, he calls translations, follows the fare. A nibbling mouse from Westminster, by Cam Hobhouse expelled his station. Now twilight, with his veil of grey, the stars of fashion frights away the carriage homeward rolls along to music party, cards, and song. 56. A very singular adventure, which occurred in 1823. The enamored swain, after settling an annuity of £700 per annum upon the fair inconstant, had the mortification to find himself abandoned on the very night the deeds were completed, the lady having made a precipitate retreat, with a more favoured lover, to Paris. The affair soon became known, and some friends interfered, when the deeds were cancelled. 57. Captain Citizen CLT, an exquisite of the first order, for a long time the favourite of the reigning sultana. 196. And many a gay delight. The Goths of Essex Street may groan, 58 turn up their eyes, and inward moan, they dare not here intrude, dare not attack the rich and great, the titled vicious of the state, the dissolute and lewd. Vice only is, in some folks' eyes, immoral, when in rags she lies, by poverty subdued, but deck her forth in gaudy vest, with courtly state and titled crest, she's everything that's good. Doth Calpo break the Sabbath day? Why, Calpo hath no funds to pay, how dare he trespass then? How dare he eat, or drink, or sleep, or shave, or wash, or laugh, or weep, or look like other men? My lord his concerts gives, 'tis true, the speaker holds his levee too, and fashion cards and dices, but these are trifles to the sin of selling apples, joints, or gin. 58. The present times have very properly been stigmatized as the age of cant. The increase of the Puritans, the smooth-faced evangelical, and the lank-haired sectarian, with their pious love meetings and Bible associations, have at last roused the slumbering spirit of the constituted authorities, who are now making the most vigorous efforts to impede the progress of these antinational and hypocritical fanatics, who, mistaking the true dictates of religion and benevolence, have, in their inflamed zeal, endeavored to extirpate every species of innocent recreation, and have laid formidable siege to honest-hearted mirth and rustic revelry. I am no prophet, nor the son of one, but if ever the noble institutions of my country suffer any revolutionary change, it is my humble opinion it will result from these sainted associations, from these pious opposers of our national characteristics, and the noblest institution of our country, the foundation stone of our honor and glory, the established Church of England. There is, in my opinion, more mischief to be apprehended to the state from the humbug of piety than from all the violence of froth, political demagogues, or the open-mouthed howl of the most hungry radicals. Let it be understood I speak not against toleration in its most extended sense, but war only with hypocrisy and fanaticism, with those of whom Juvenal has written, qui aureos simulant albicamalia vivenit. 197. Lo, execrable vices. Cease, persecutors, mock reclaimers, ye jaundiced few, ye legal maimers of the lone, poor, and meek, ye moral fishers for stray gudgeons, ye sainted host of old curmudgeons, who ne'er the wealthy seek. If moralists would appear, attack vice in its highest sphere, the cause of all the strife, the spring and source from whence does flow pollution o'er the plains below, through all degrees of life. The opera, the man of fashion fops alley modern roe and